Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to what is race 2 of the British Triathlon Tri-Nations Challenge for this slightly unusual year that we've been having. It's, of course, the pandemic has sent things all over the place over the last 18 months, but it is a pleasure to have our home nations riders with us here on the virtual platform of Zwift, and of course all of our supporters and viewers from hopefully tuning in on Facebook. Good evening to you. Hope you've had a beautiful day, and hopefully the weather where you are is as blue sky and lovely and warm as it is where I am at the moment. So yeah, welcome to this second race. As we said, we kicked off a month ago with the first event was on the virtual roads of London, and from London, which I know many of you will be familiar with from various triathlons over the years, we now take a detour over to Europe, and we're heading to Austria, and we're on the roads of Innsbruck. Innsbruck was the home of the 2018 UCI World Road Racing Cycling Championships, and today we get to race over the course known as the Innsbruckring. This was a 9-kilometre circuit, just a touch under actually. Allegedly one of the flatter courses within Innsbruck on the Zwift platform, but of course it does come with a bit of a kick in the teeth. We have the leg snapper, as it's known, which is a short but a little bit steep, about 7% climb midway into the lap, about 5 kilometres into the lap, 450 metres long. So I'm sure as we go through the evening, 3 laps for a total of just under 27 kilometres. No doubt that leg snapper will start to snap at the legs of our riders. I know from our first race we did actually have several of the riders were listening to the commentary, so if that is you, you're on the starting grids now, 30 seconds to go. A big welcome. Thank you for joining us. Hope you enjoy the next I guess 35 minutes to an hour, whatever it may be for you. And as the clock counts down, no doubt the pedals will start revving, and as we know, in the world of Zwift, everything goes hard from the gun. So 3, 2, 1, and we are off. So of course our athletes representing Triathlon England, Welsh Triathlon and Triathlon Scotland. You'll see them come together very, very soon. 3 different starts. So we've got the white jerseys of those athletes who are members of Triathlon England, the blue of Scotland, and the red, of course, of Wales. So we come out of the starting pen, and we're just about to go under the archway, which I believe that will be the finish line at the end of the race. So basically from that point, exactly 3 laps to go. So we'll let the race settle down in the early stages. Just looking through some of the names that we did see registered and lining up at the start. A few of them did race last time. You can see Matthew Latham up there. If you are listening to us, Matthew, as well as riding, then good evening to you. Matthew was a top 10 finisher last time. We also have the distinguished name of Chris Walker. Chris from Gibraltar is not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but a 5-time Commonwealth Games representative for Gibraltar. He is now well into his 50s, but still a fantastic athlete. 3 times he has represented Gibraltar in the triathlon at the Commonwealth Games, and twice in cycling, in road and time trial cycling. So great to see Chris joining us this evening. Got Ross Husband is one of the names up there as well. Lindsay Giles, I believe, also raced with us a month ago. So we're then settling down at the front. So here we go. We've got those little groups come together. So we do have the white of Triathlon England, the blue of Scotland, and a couple of the red and black jerseys representing Welsh Triathlon. So if you've not seen a Zwift race before, or have not been partaking yourself in Zwift, Zwift is an online training platform that allows riders from all over the globe to ride in a virtual world, and in this case it's a real life representation of these roads in Innsbruck. And from their homes, the riders will be riding on their bikes connected to typically what we call a smart trainer. The old days it was a turbo trainer. It's sort of a souped up version of that, or potentially a smart bike like a Watt bike or a Stages bike, Wahoo bike. There's a number of them available, and then Zwift is able to take all of the outputs from that bike in terms of their power output, the weights of the riders, the heights, and then convert it such that what is represented on screen is as near as we can get, is a real representation of our athletes on the road. And so what we're seeing in these early stages is quite a big group up at the front. If you look up at the top of the screen, if you are watching it, you'll see the kilometers ticking by. So we're just up to 2.6 kilometers, and we did mention that on this course one of the main factors is this short sharp climb, what we call the leg snapper. That comes at about 5 kilometers. So I'm pretty sure many of our riders here are extremely familiar with racing on Zwift. And there at the front there's a man that we did mention, that's Chris Walker. He is currently leading the way, position number 1. We've also got, just looking down at the list, Heather Williams. Heather was our female winner of race 1. Also another name very distinguished within the sport. One time she was the British Triathlon's performance director, and prior to that an elite athlete herself. Has raced in many an ETU Cup and ITU Triathlon World Cup, as they were known back in the day, before the various name changes. So ITU now World Triathlon, etc. But Helen still very, very fit, clearly. So those distance is ticking by pretty swiftly. Looks like we do have an athlete just trying to make a little bit of a move off the front. This is M Agent. Apologies, I don't have the first name there. I'm just going to have a quick look here, see if I can work that out. But we're only about a kilometre away now from that first key factor in this event, which will be that leg snapper. So just going back to talking about the technology, how all this works, and perhaps you're looking on thinking, well, how can what looks like a representation on screen, maybe it's like a cartoon, or how does that actually feel like a hill? Well, the great thing is not only does Zwift take all of that information back from your smart bike or your smart trainer into Zwift and be able to convert that to speed, but Zwift then also it's like a two-way communication. So as you hit a climb, the turbos will actually feel that resistance. So as you are riding in the comfort, or perhaps it should be the discomfort, certainly sweat if the temperatures around the rest of the UK are anything like where I'm sitting at the moment, the athletes will feel that in their legs, and that's what makes this virtual riding in the modern environment a real close approximation of actually riding outdoors, and that's part of the reason for the boom in popularity of indoor training, particularly over the last 18 months, as we've all in many cases been pretty much confined to home. So we're just coming up to that 5 kilometre mark, so I think we're going to make a right hand turn any second, and pretty sure from memory that will be the beginning of that leg snapper. And then on the right hand side, you'll be seeing the athletes' names, and it'll also give you their watts per kilo. So the watts is the power output, or effectively how hard they are or having to hit that pedal. So we're just going into the leg snapper now, and you'll probably be seeing those watts per kilo numbers rising. This is where the pressure will be on. This is where that group potentially will be split, just as it would be. And particularly if you are me riding up a hill and you're not very strong and you're far too heavy, you go backwards. So here, this is where it really pays to be the strong rider, the light rider, and that the benefit of having that high watts per kilo really does come into effect on the hills. What we'll also be seeing, and we're seeing on screen there, is one of the gamified elements of Zwift, because Zwift always refers to itself as sort of applying the gaming technology into a real life training world. Is athletes will be given what we call power-ups as they go through various points on the course. They'll get those coloured circles that appear, which give them the opportunity through normally their iPad or their mobile phone. They will have benefits such as making their rider, the on-screen rider, lighter for a short period of time. Obviously, it helps them going up hills, increases their aerodynamics, gives them some draft benefits, etc. So at various points, dependent on where you are in the course, particularly going uphill, then being able to use what's called the lightweight or the feather power-up is definitely an advantage. So we're now flying along at a very, very quick speed. As you can see, looks like that's 65 kilometers up at the top. So that's the descent. Apologies, 50 kilometers. Sorry, I'm looking at the accumulated height climbed through the race. Apologies for that. So we've gone up that leg snapper. We've now come down the other side, and we're now back onto the primarily flat road. So again, at the front, it is Chris Walker, who we mentioned, but still lots of athletes pretty close. So just looking through that top list there, it looks like we've got the top, certainly the top 7 or 8 athletes within 9 seconds. But it's not a surprise to see Chris up there. Now, Chris is riding what is known in Zwift world as the Tron bike. Got those actually in second place as well. T. Claire. So within Zwift, you can choose which bike you ride, but also as you work through Zwift and use it multiple times and for many hours and take part in events and such like, you going back to that gaming idea, you work your way through the levels. So when you start off, you're level 0 obviously, and over time you can progress through experience and time on Zwift up the levels, and as you go through various levels, then you get the opportunity to choose different kit and different bikes and various other bits, and the Tron bike is one of those. And I forget the exact details, but I'm pretty sure that you only get the Tron bike once you have managed to accumulate a pretty significant amount of climbing over your Zwift riding. I'm sure somebody out there will know the details. If you do, just drop it in the comments. I think it's something like 50,000 meters of climbing or something ridiculous. It's probably why I've not got the Tron bike myself, because I always managed to divert to the flat courses on Zwift, which is probably why I'm sitting here and not riding. But if you are watching, thank you for joining us. This is, as we said, race 2 of a 6-race series each month, going all the way through to October. There will be one of these Tri-Nations Challenge events. They're all relatively short, sort of between 23 and I think the longest is just looking at 29 kilometers, and we're going to be covering many of the different worlds within Zwift. So we did London last time, Innsbruck today. We're going to be in France, then in Paris, then New York, and then Yorkshire for the final one. Bit of a homecoming, and you'd be pretty sure that once we get to that Yorkshire course, the UCI Worlds course in Harrogate, bound to be some hills in that one, but that's for future. This is today, so race 2, and we've still got plenty of athletes very, very close together at the front, and we do have a nice mix as well. We've got four or five actually of the Triathlon England riders. They're represented in the white jerseys. We've got Chris Walker representing Welsh Triathlon, and then we also have a rider from Scotland there. Apologies, my screen here is a little bit blurry, so I didn't quite pick that up. So, but you'll be able to see that, I'm sure, watching through Facebook or perhaps on YouTube, where I think this is it's either going out live or certainly will be replayed later. So I got to 9.3k, so we're now through and on to the second lap. So this is P. Haslam from Scotland. So actually we've got two of our Scottish athletes up there at the front at the moment. So it was two English athletes, or representing Triathlon England, I should say, in race 1. Will Newbury and Heather Williams were first across the line. So it would be good if maybe Scotland or indeed Wales at the moment, and Chris Walker seems to be their highest placed athlete on the road, certainly for the men. Going to see if they can return the favour and get one back over on the English. And having lived in Wales and got some Welsh blood myself, there's nothing more than the Welsh like than getting a victory over England, particularly if it's in rugby. Just over 10k gone. Tonight's official distance is 26.6 kilometers. So the Innsbruckring course is 8.8 kilometers. So multiply that by 3, and then there's a couple of 100 meters, I think, from the start pens that we saw before we went under what will be the finish line. But still very, very close. So I think that group, yeah, maybe didn't actually get as reduced as much as I thought first time we were through that leg snapper section. It's a sharp hill, but it's not too long, only about 450 meters. So it's one that doesn't necessarily need you to be the full-on mountain goat, but it's definitely one where a little bit of power to stay with the group might be required. Yeah, so at the front here, you see, if you look to the right-hand side where you've got the listing of the various riders that are sort of just around, depending on where we're looking, which rider we are following at that particular time, it will give you on the left-hand column the time either behind or ahead. So when you look down on that left-hand side, we're all the way down now, we're going down to about 11th. And you see the 0.00, that basically means that group is all together. So although we might be looking at positions 12, 13, 14, effectively at that point it's still one group together. And that's always good to see, particularly when we get towards the end, because everybody loves a sprint finish, don't they? And that's certainly what we had last time when we had Will Newbury and Tim Fletcher. They were sprinting down what was the virtual mile, real life representation of the roads in London, which many of you will be familiar with from having raced back in 2011, 2012 and 2013 for the grand final at the various ITU World Triathlon Championship events, and that grand final and World Championships in 2013 based in Hyde Park. That was very flat grand finals, really no hills. Various. So today's course primarily flat, but there is just that little kicker really of the leg snapper, and we're not going to be too far away from coming back to that again. We're just winding our way through the towns here in Innsbruck. So these roads will be a real representation of those roads that were used in 2018 as part of the UCI Cycling World Championships, and as well as partnerships with British Triathlon and other triathlon bodies around the world. Zwift is also very closely linked with the UCI. We had the first Zwift UCI World Champion, was that last year or earlier this year? So virtual racing is definitely becoming a real thing. And what I found interesting, just as a viewer, when we've been watching some of the pro races, for example, it is funny just how quickly you almost switch off from the fact that what you're seeing on screen is an avatar representation of athletes, and it becomes real life racing. And of course, behind each of these on-screen avatars there is a real rider. They are probably if they're not in a pool of sweat already, they will be certainly on their way to doing so, back in their homes, in their garages, in their pain caves, whatever you want to call it. And it's just fantastic the way that technology has developed and been able to bring people together from all over the country, potentially all over the world, to race in one place, courtesy of Zwift. So you can hear the rumble in the background. That's as we're going over the cobbled section there. So there will be a few of the athletes, if they are riding some of the really high-end turbo trainers. The Tax Neo does actually have a real representation of those cobbles. But here we go, we are now heading uphill. So our first rider there, it looks like he has put down the featherweight power up. So as we talked about, what that does is reduce that rider's weight by 10% for 15 seconds. So you use that on climbs where effectively it artificially adjusts your weight. So if you've got an athlete that's trying to make a breakaway, or maybe trying to get back to the group, and I've got that option to put down that featherweight power up, that's a great place to do that. And I'm sure once we get to the third lap, this is lap 2 or 3, if we've got any of our riders looking to make a breakaway for the finish, that would be a great place to use that option. But still, Chris Walker, who's been right up at the front from the beginning. Tony Clare is the I was just trying to look for Tony's first name there on my data here. So yeah, Tony Clare we've been watching at the moment, so we're getting the view from his riding position. So behind the scenes we've got Andy is is helping us out tonight. He is, through the wonders of Zwift, is able to put the view that we see from different riders. So he's got the tough job of trying to follow the action, both up at the front and a little bit further down the pack as well. So we're going to try and give as many of you as we can a good name call tonight. So we did mention a few of the riders that were lined up tonight: Matthew Latham, Ross Husband, Lindsay Giles, Simon Bainbridge, and Stephen Harris. Saw all of you guys pretty early actually in the warm-up pens, getting ready for the race. And as these Zwift races are relatively short and fast and flat out from the gun, then ensuring that you are warmed up and ready is pretty important. There's not too much in the way of taking it easy from the start. And lots of these riders, as I was looking through a little bit of their histories beforehand, are very, very experienced, and there were plenty of these athletes that were in the 30s and even higher in terms of Zwift levels. So they've got plenty of experience. So what we're getting there is a different view. This is looking back. So we're now up looking at that lead group. So we talked about a group of 10 to 14, but that has definitely split now. We're getting a good view from the perspective of Matthew Latham. So we did mention earlier, Matthew did race in race 1 of the British Triathlon Tri-Nations Challenge last month, where he had a top 10. So we do seem to have a break of, looks like 4 or 5 riders. So if you, just to give you the explanation of that, if you look on the right hand side, you're obviously seeing those 4 riders on the screen. But what we're also seeing at the top is where we're getting the distances behind, which is the first number on the left under the rider's name. That is telling you how far either in front of or behind the athletes are from the view of the rider that we're looking at. So we are looking at here R. Harper from the MTC Falcons. And then if you just look up on the right hand side where all the data is, you'll see that, for example, Chris Walker, Matthew Latham, it's showing -10 because they are at that point 10 seconds behind that leading group. So hopefully that makes sense. So we're trying to flick through just a little bit of those groups. So what we're seeing here, this looks like, I guess we call this the chasing small group. I think we've got 4 away at the front. But we've got Miller here from Scotland, perhaps trying to bridge back up to the front. But that's, as it would be in real life, is a pretty tough ask on Zwift. What Zwift also allows, just as you would outside, you have that drafting impact. So with all of the data inputs that Zwift will take from the rider's individual turbo trainer, smart bike, in terms of power output, the weight that they would have put in to the system. It also applies a factor for your height, and then works out quite a complex algorithm to give a realistic representation of what that person's aerodynamics, etc. would be. So just as in the real world, if you've got a group of 4, can generally, if they work together, move faster than one person trying to chase them. So we're looking at Miller at the moment. We're about, looks like 8 or 9 seconds behind our leading group. So maybe they are closing just slightly. It was 10 seconds a minute ago. So this group working hard. Are they going to be able to get back to the front? They are going to have to work hard, because you can just see how quick the riding is here. Looking up at the top, we've got 18.4 kilometers now completed at that top data point on what we call the heads-up display. So with each of these laps, 8.8 kilometers, that indicates we are right now just at the beginning of lap 3. So we're into the final lap. We're looking here at the second group on virtual world, if that makes sense. So they're still trying to make their way back to what looks to be, is that a leading 4? So we've got Tony Clare, Matthew Latham, Chris Walker, and apologies, I don't have the first name of M Agent. Not sure if that is the full name or perhaps another representation, so apologies for that. But this group is working hard. On at this point, the flat roads of Innsbruck, they'll be working their way through the town, and it won't be too long until we come back once again, but this time for the third and final time for that short, sharp rise of what is known in the Zwift world as the leg snapper. 7.5% climb, 5 kilometers into the lap, just 450 meters long. So we're now back with our leading 4. So it is a trio of Triathlon England riders. But of course they have the experienced and the wily talents of Chris Walker. If you've just joined us a few moments ago, then you may well have missed earlier on. If you don't know Chris's background, he has been a really high-level, high-performing athlete for probably 3 decades or more now. Represents Gibraltar and has been at the last 5 Commonwealth Games. First race in the triathlon in Manchester way back in 2002. The next 2 Commonwealth Games, he raced in the time trial and or the road race at the Commonwealth Games, and then the last 2 Commonwealth Games. So that would have been up in Glasgow 2014, which I was also very, very fortunate to be at and doing the on-site commentary at. And then in the Gold Coast, he was back in triathlon. So that is a pretty impressive resume to go, yeah, have you been to the Commonwealth Games? No, I've been to 5. He's also been representing Gibraltar in the Island Games, which is almost like, I suppose, a mini Olympics for the smaller nations and the smaller islands. So, yeah, like Gibraltar, Guernsey, Jersey, Malta, and many others. So he is a very, very experienced athlete. And now just looking at, we've got that overhead shot. That's a great shot there. Looked like he was trying to put an effort, but one of the riders is trying to go with him. So have we got a split here? We had a group of 4, but the pressure does seem to be on there. Got Simon Bainbridge and M Agent. So definitely movement at the front. 21.1 kilometers. So we are barely 5 kilometers to go now. 26.6 is the distance that we're looking for. And when we come up to that finish line, you'll be seeing the big finish archway. And then just before that, if it'd be interesting, you take a look at the on the right hand side, we've got under each of the athlete names the watts per kilogram. So that's as it sort of the name indicates, that's a measure of the total power output measured in watts divided by the weight of the athlete in kilograms. So that sort of gives you almost a sort of standardized measure of the relative power outputs of those athletes. So typically a 100 kilogram man will be able to put out significantly more power than a 50 kilogram woman, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they will go faster because of the weights. It's the watts per kilogram is very, very significant. It's not everything, but it is certainly significant in that. But once they come up to that finish, it will be there'll be nothing left. They'll need to leave everything out on the virtual roads, and then it'll be into full sprint mode. Something that's not something that comes naturally to many triathletes. We for the vast majority, most of the time cycling, we are not looking to go absolutely 100% because there's a little matter of a run at the end of our events. So absolute top power output sprinting is perhaps not where triathletes excel, but hopefully we've got a few of our riders perhaps got the stream running and listening. I know we did last time. Afterwards I did message Will Newbury, who was our first across the line there, and yeah, he did tell me that he was listening, and he did think he'd messed up his sprint, but no, it did work out. A very, very close finish just over Tim Fletcher. So we're now back with, this is the second group. So they actually look like they are closing back up towards the front, or is that two of what was the leading group of four perhaps dropping back? We're now on the leg snapper for the final time. So really this is the last opportunity to use any significant course attributes to really make an attack, pull away, drop the athletes, or perhaps try to bridge back. You can just see visually the speed of the riders on the screen slowing, just as it would do in the real world if you were going uphill. So where we've been seeing speeds on the flat of 40-45 kilometers an hour, just looking up at the top of the heads-up display on screen here, you're seeing 16, 17, 18 kilometers an hour as they are going up that hill, still putting out the same, if not more, power. But just as in the real world, unfortunately, you can put out the same or more effort, but when you go uphill, you just do not go as quick. So they're just coming up to the top now. So our leaders are over the top. So we're back at the front. This is Tony Clare, 23.6 kilometers. So we're only 3 kilometers to go. So is he away and clear? Now, I wonder if we can get... no, he is going to say, could we get a view looking back? But no, it definitely not. We do still have that group of four together. So it does still look as though it is the three riders representing Triathlon England, and then representing his home nation. In terms of where they're registered within the British triathlon infrastructure is Chris Walker. So will it be one of the trio of English athletes? Will it be Wales? Or could there be a late surge from behind, somebody chasing? Just as we see often in the Tour de France, the peloton finally catches them in the very, very late stages. But the speed is definitely on now. We are, up to 45 kilometers an hour. We're on the flat. We have just got 2 kilometers of racing to go. So we're probably only 3 minutes, if that, away from the finish line. There's definitely going to be some big sprinting coming up at the finish. So we've got Tony Clare, we've got Chris Walker, Matthew Latham. 3 of our athletes. And then it was M Agent, wasn't it? Was the 4th, I believe, if I've got my data right here. So just look how quick that distance is running down. 25.2, 25.3. We are almost approaching the last kilometre now. So which way is it going to go? So 1 kilometre to go now. It's going to be flat and fast. No more climbs, no more hills. This Innsbruckring really is one of the flatter sections on the Innsbruck map. Just with that sting of the leg snapper. We're watching Tony Clare. So, ladies and gentlemen, who is going to win? Have you got one of your club mates, friends, family members, etc. in the group? Who is going to take the honours as we head in now into the last 600, 500 metres? Who is going to be timing the sprint correctly? So we've still got the view of Tony Clare. We've got Chris Walker just behind. Now we've got Matthew Latham, who was a top 10 finisher in the first race last month of this British Triathlon Tri-Nations Challenge on the roads of London. Oh, looks like the sprinting has started. So here we go. We're coming right up to the finish now. The full on, who is, crikey, that is very, very, very close. Who is going to get it? We've got Chris Walker. I don't think is Chris going to get it at the I think Chris Walker has got it at the very, very, very last stage as well. That was an exceptionally close finish. We're back now. We're going to see the rest of our riders in. So we've got Miller from Scotland, 5th place across the line. It did look as though, yeah, we're definitely going to have the virtual photo finish for that one. We'll leave that to the wonders of Zwift to confirm, but it was exceptionally close, and could it have been our 5-time Commonwealth Games representative Chris Walker, who perhaps got there at the very final stages. So on the screen now, also from Triathlon England, we have representing the Wheel de Beasts. What a great name that is for a club or an online club. I don't know about them. I know a lot of the triathlon clubs and running clubs, but I've never heard of the Wheel de Beasts. But that is a great name. So yeah, up at the front we did have we think Tony Clare, Latham, Walker and Agent. But all of these final positions, and then of course all of the points related to them, allocated male and female across the Triathlon England, Welsh Triathlon and Triathlon Scotland. The home nations will be compiled by British Triathlon and available on their website, hopefully sometime tomorrow morning. And here are the Wheel de Beast just completing his race. We're now going back to S. Harris, who's currently in 11th position. I think one of the riders that we're going to see here, I'm not sure their real name, but their Zwift name is brilliant, because coming up soon we're going to see Dr. Kickass. What a way to have your avatar on Zwift and be known as Dr. Kickass. Here's Ross Husband. Ross was one of the riders who was in the start pen pretty early. So Ross now 26 kilometres, so he is in the last half a kilometre to the finish line. So good job for all of our riders tonight, and big thank you to everybody that joined us, and we're going to be here for a little while yet. following the rest of our riders in. But thank you to all of our riders. Hope you've enjoyed this, which was an initiative by British Triathlon. As you, of course, don't need me to point out, the number of events has been really thrown up in the air the last 18 months or so. So it's just a way to create a bit of inter-nation fun, really, bit of competition. And as we saw there, Zwift can provide some fantastically close finishes, just as in the real world. And here is Ross Husband in the white of Triathlon England, just crossing the line. So well done, Ross. Sam Palmer from Electric Spirit is going to be next across the line. Oh no, he's not going to be next across the line. He just got pipped at the last moment by the full-on sprint finish from Lindsay Giles. So Lindsay is another of our athletes that also raced last month. So good to have you back. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that is where the commentary and the stream for the evening is going to be finishing up. Many thank you to everybody for joining us once again. Been a pleasure to be part of this British Triathlon Tri-Nations Challenge once again. Just a reminder, this is a monthly event. This is just race 2 of 6. It's open to any of our home nations members. If you are a Zwift user, there is no charge to take part. We'd love you to come along, have some fun, have some sweat, and take part. Doesn't matter if fast, slow, makes no difference. The next event is on Tuesday, the 13th of July. So be on Tuesday, so 13th of July, and we're in France next month. And the route is a 23.9 kilometer route, which in the Zwift world is known as Casse-Pattes. And not to scare you off, but translation of Casse-Pattes from French is a leg breaker. So there's going to be a few hills on there just to disrupt your rhythm, but don't worry, it's nothing too extreme. So thank you for your viewing tonight. I hope you've enjoyed it. We will be back with you on Tuesday, the 13th of July. Thank you to all of our riders. Thank you to everybody behind the scenes here. And we will see you very, very soon. For now, good night.